Welcome to episode 2 of the Exodus Public Land Trail Camera mini-series. In episode 1, we covered theft prevention. If you guys haven't seen that, click the annotation on the screen to check it out. There's a nice little hidden gem in there for you. In this episode, we want to share our public land strategies to get more photos of velvet bucks in the summer. There's no doubt something special about getting velvet giants, velvet bucks on camera during the summer. And for us, we feel like it's the first realization of what could come into fruition during the fall. And it may be a little bit different for some of you watching this, but for us, hunting primarily in states where deer are no longer on their summertime patterns, these techniques and tips and strategies aren't necessarily to devise a kill plan, but more so to build a hit list come fall. So with that being said, let's dive into why, where, and how we set up our cameras to be most efficient for velvet bucks. Enjoy. So with our main objective of simply gathering inventory of the general buck population in an area, we're going to focus on food. Food. Summertime feeding patterns are where you're going to be able to use the least amount of cameras and gather the most amount of velvet buck photos. So for us, and some of the pieces that we hunt, that is going to be primary food destinations, primary feeding zones. So major ag, cornfields, bean fields, alfalfa fields, anywhere where you're going to get a high volume of velvet buck pictures with the least amount of cameras. And for us, again, not being able to get on these bucks on summertime feeding patterns, it doesn't matter if we're getting daytime photos of these bucks or nighttime photos. Now, come October, it's a completely different story. But for summertime strategies, we just simply want velvet buck pictures, and we want to know what is in a general area so we have an idea of the radius they're going to relocate in. If you're in the big woods, you could focus on clear cuts. So clear cuts are no different than a major ag field or food plot. Anywhere where there's filtering light coming down to the forest floor, the forest simply explodes with new growth. So a very high stem count, those deer will come in there and use that just like an ag field, and use that as a primary feeding destination. So with this specific set, you can see right behind me here, there's an elevated set. This is on the border of public and private. This camera is actually monitoring an inside corner of a pretty large cornfield here. We set this camera up in May when this corn was just starting to sprout. So during those early weeks or early months of the growth cycle of this field corn, we're probably not going to have a ton of pictures, but here within the last few weeks, we've started to get ears have started to form. So now there's a little more food readily available for these bucks. So this is the first carpool, so we're pretty excited to see what's on here. But in these ag areas, or in these major primary food feeding zones, you want to be able to hang your cameras in inside corners where there's a lot of security cover. These deer most of the time are going to come out in the evenings where obviously they feel the most secure. So in this specific spot, this fence row runs east and west. There's some mature trees in it. It's probably 20 or 30 yards wide. So a lot of times these deer are traveling this fence row and then coming out where they feel safe or where they feel comfortable. So this specific spot, there's a lot of edge here. So we have an edge on the fence row. We have an edge on this cornfield where it actually meets, I'm just going to say it's an overgrown, basically pasture. It's not a CRP field or anything, but there's a lot of native grasses, jewelweed, milkweed, and stuff coming up. So this is a nice, beautiful transition spot on an inside corner where there's 3 different types of edge or habitat going on, and I'm guessing that camera's going to be loaded with pictures over the last couple weeks. So we're up here checking this elevated set that looks over that cornfield. And I'm not sure if you could see that, but there are 830 photos over the last, majority of the photos are the last 3 weeks. So just like I was saying, after this cornfield, these corn stalks started forming ears, the activity really picked up over the last couple weeks. So we've also got a lot of pedestrians in here walking around. So again, no one's noticed this camera, so that's definitely a bonus. This isn't probably not going to be a general area that we hunt because of the pressure. But again, for summertime trail camera strategies and running cameras simply to get inventory of bucks, this set has kind of knocked it out of the park. So we'll pull this card and head back to the office and get a closer look at some of these bucks, see if there's anything we want to chase. So this specific set, again, we're focusing on food here, but it's a little bit different. This set, we're gonna we'll let the set run all year long, because we're actually on a finger or point of the swamp just behind us, where these deer are bedding, and the point comes out to a fence row that runs parallel with a giant bean field just 15 yards to the north. So this is an ideal spot for all year trail camera set, all year trail camera data. Could be a great rut spot. We don't know the bedding structure here, the bedding hierarchy here. We're a firm believer in a lot of the things that Jeff Sturgis preaches about primary doe family groups bedding closest to primary food, and then the subordinate doe family groups bedding behind the primary doe family groups, and then subordinate bucks, and then actually those mature bucks bedding the furthest away, bedding in those most isolated, remote spots where they're not having to deal with high stress levels from other deer or human intrusion. And that is, I guess, particularly to fall after these deer start changing their patterns a little bit. Obviously during the summertime, these bucks are grouped up in bachelor groups, so this is a great spot to be really efficient with one camera, gathering a lot of intel for summertime bucks. Now, that is specifically due to topography. Again, we're on a point of the swamp that leads to this fence row, so it creates a natural funnel for these deer to travel from bedding to food. And using topography features like this, it doesn't matter if you're in hill country, farm country, swamp, it doesn't matter. The point is to find these topography features and use them to your advantage. So whether that's a bench or a saddle or something like that in the big woods that leads to primary food destinations, get your cameras there, get them set up, and you'll be really efficient at gathering a lot of velvet buck photos. So we're at another elevated set, as you see just above me. This camera we specifically hung here for summer trail camera data and pictures of velvet bucks, and we did that because of two reasons. One is topography. Again, coming back to topography, there's some elevation change here. As you see behind this camera, there's a big drop in elevation change with somewhat of a steep bank, which is going to force these deer to come out and travel out in front of this camera, which there is a well-beaten path about 10 yards from me. So that proves that theory. The primary reason, I guess, why we put this camera here is because of the open hardwoods, heavy canopied forest that these bucks crave during the summer months. So they come in here and use this area for a bedding area while they're in their bachelor groups, because it's cool, it's shaded, and it again provides them enough cover and security to fit their needs during these summer months. Now, come fall, this will be a desert. There's not going to be any bucks bedding in here because there's not going to be a high enough stem count to provide them with security that they're craving at that time. But as far as summer months go, these open hardwoods, heavy canopied forest structures can be a great area to find summertime buck beds. And again, being efficient with these cameras, you're able to put these cameras in these types of locations where there's bedding and there's topography or some kind of structure that it's going to limit how these deer travel. And if you're able to find areas like that, put those cameras up and you'll be sure to get a lot of velvet buck photos. One of the things we wanted to touch base on in this video is the use of feeders, bait stations, and mineral sites. We don't have a ton of experience using trail cameras over those, simply because the majority of the hunting that we do is on public ground in Ohio, and it's illegal to bait, it's illegal to use feeders, and it's illegal to use any kind of attractant on the ground, whether that's salt, minerals, whatever. However, for anybody that is on private, or lives in a state or hunts in a state where it's legal to use those on public property, it can be absolutely dynamite as far as gathering intel and being efficient with your trail cameras. The use of feeders, bait stations, we would highly recommend using cameras, making sure that you're setting those up in a manner where you're not getting tens of thousands of photos on every card pull. So if you are going to set a camera up on a bait station or feeder, use a long trigger delay. Use a 2 or 3 minute trigger delay, because that's a static environment where those deer are going to come in, they're going to spend time. And during the summer months, again, the objective is to gather intel and know what's in the area. So if you miss a photo, it's not the end of the world. Eventually you'll get a picture of that deer on that site, because they are routinely going to be hitting that. I think a lot of guys mess up when they use feeders or corn piles or whatever, because they're setting up right on that corn pile and they're trying to hunt, or they're going in and checking their cameras every week, and it's forcing those deer to only hit those sites at night because of the human intrusion and the pressure. So there's a couple things there. One, you don't want to go in and check your camera every week. Let those cameras sit for a month, 3 weeks, whatever, and let them do their job. Again, you're not devising a kill plan with these photos. You're simply gathering inventory, knowing what deer are in the area, what deer have lived, and trying to formulate some type of hit list come fall. So let those cameras sit out there, let them do their jobs. Just to touch briefly on mineral sites, mineral sites can be just as good as using feeders or bait stations, corn piles, whatever. You know, there's a lot of guys, there's a big debate in the industry whether minerals do anything for deer. We're not here to debate that. Whether you want to use stock salt, mineral, whatever you want to use, attractant, more power to you. But being able to use those sites is definitely an advantage. The big thing with using mineral or salt, these deer during the summer months are gathering most of their water intake from their food, from their diet, from the foliage and leaves and things that they're eating. Which, again, I'm not a biologist, but from people we talk to and people we know and studies and research that we've read, that forces deer to crave certain types of minerals, whether that's sodium, I don't know, but those spots can definitely be efficient in gathering summertime velvet buck photos. So if you have the opportunity to use that kind of stuff, by all means do so. Again, we're not gonna show any examples or show you exactly what we do on those types of sites, because we don't do a whole lot of it, and that's just the honest truth. So that's about a wrap for this episode. We hope that we're providing some type of value for you guys. We have a lot of fun doing this, and hopefully we're helping you guys out. If we are, hit the subscribe button. We'd love to have you guys part of our mission and followers of the Exodus brand. So thank you for all the support. It's really humbling. So until next time.